Cave Dog's Total Annihilation is one of the greatest real-time strategy games ever made, and I'm going to give you 7 reasons why it is still worth playing today. Despite being released in 1997, Total Annihilation remains a standout real-time strategy game due to its innovative physics engine, diverse range of units, unique resource system, distinct worlds, engaging gameplay, and memorable soundtrack. There is also an even more important reason that I'll discuss later, so please hang on for that and my final thoughts on the game at the end of the video. Total Annihilation still has a superb physics engine. Units' speed, size, and damage dealing abilities are all affected by the technology levels. Although maps appear just like old 2D bitmap images, the game's terrain functions as a 3D surface, allowing for realistic movements, combat, and map interaction. Units must adjust their speed and acceleration in response to gravity, creating a sense of immersion and strategic depth. This level of realism adds an additional layer of complexity to the gameplay. The line of sight of the units, as well as various surfaces and obstacles, all have an impact on weapon fire. You can create kill zones and choke points by using the terrain against the enemy, or you can protect yourself by hiding behind hills and map structures. Each map can also have different levels of wind, tidal forces, or gravity, which will affect energy consumption, energy collection, and aspects of combat. A nice touch is a lot of plant life is also flammable, which means you can shoot it and it will burn. There's an array of annoying infantry bots, powerful battleships, versatile hovercraft, strategic planes, various construction units, and massive walking envoys of death like the Core Krogoth, all at the player's disposal. There are many different types of ground, sea, and air units, and there are even units with the ability to lay mines, build walls, and jam other players' radars. Each unit has its own specific information to read up on and can be given various instructions how to behave around enemies, such as standing their ground, actively attacking, or holding position instead of manoeuvring around. Your main man is the commander, with whom you typically start a game. The commander starts with a large array of base building technologies and is armed with an impressive and destructive antimatter D-gun that can pretty much destroy anything it encounters. The commander is also armed with a cloaking device, which is extremely useful but often underutilised. Oh, and I do need to mention that he's also a walking thermonuclear bomb. Organised players can create large groups of units, deploy strategic attacks from land, air, and sea simultaneously from all over the map, and designate multiple targets or set areas to patrol, guard, or roam. Units can be given various instructions on how to behave around enemies, such as standing their ground instead of actively seeking attack, or holding position instead of manoeuvring around. A limited number of highly developed units are extremely useful during your war. For example, nuclear missile launchers deal massive damage over a wide area, while long-range artillery may reach almost any location on smaller maps. Always try and remember to build your missile defense system, otherwise you might end up getting nuked. Base building can be extensive, with factories for all different types of units and their advanced versions. Each type of construction unit has its own simple and easy to understand tech tree, and some units have access to additional types of special technologies. There is a large array of resource gathering structures for natural energies such as solar, wind, thermal, and tidal. There are various mining facilities for precious metals and even nuclear fusion reactors, all of which form part of a player's economic strategy. Total Annihilation's resources are both infinite and streaming, meaning they are constantly accumulated as a flow rather than in small chunks. While the cost of building each unit and structure is constant, the rate at which they are constructed varies from one unit to another. An example would be a commander who can construct a structure 3 times quicker than most other construction vehicles or aircraft, but with much greater energy and material costs. Building the strongest units is more time consuming and resource intensive, but it can reap massive rewards during conflict if deployed carefully. This does give you a genuine awareness of your resource spending, as it takes actual time from your life to build these structures and units. When your resources are being used faster than they are being gained, your reserves will eventually run out. There's something called nanostalling that happens when your reserves run out and everything in production slows to a crawl. It feels exactly like when you're a student and you're trying to eke everything out until payday. This also affects everything that relies on those materials. So for example, laser towers reliant on energy won't work when energy levels are depleted. If you are desperate, recoverable energy and metal can also be found in some of the map's building structures and organic terrain, such as plants and trees, so maybe it's a good idea not to burn them all down after all. All of the worlds in Total Annihilation have their own distinct personalities and characteristics. Seven Islands, one of my personal favourites, is made up of 7 giant metal islands separated by dark gloomy oceans. This map is huge, and this world is perfectly set up for air, naval and ground invasion warfare. You can literally transport your troops across the oceans and invade other islands, or, if you like, you can just nuke everyone from afar. While metal is abundant in this particular world, other maps aren't quite so giving, with many maps resembling every relatable area of our own real world. Ice, deserts and rocky volcanic maps have similar and smaller distributions of metal, meaning player strategies may lean towards fighting over the smaller metal patches or trying to create metal by utilising massive energy resources, focusing on expanding energy production and converting it into metal. Lakes and oceans are common on many maps. Most ground units cannot travel across them, and this is where the use of amphibious units and hovercraft, supported by aircraft, across mixed terrain comes into play. However, if they come under attack from enemy ships or submarines while doing so, they might in turn become helpless. Lava, acid or particularly rocky maps make them inaccessible to any means of ground offensive, so air-based strategies come more into play. I even found on some maps that you can get random or consistent meteor showers that do massive damage to your army, which I think is a brilliant touch and something you can't account for. I absolutely love the simplicity and grand scale of the plot of this game. It really doesn't hold back. Despite the outdated graphics, the intro to the game is still one of the very best I've seen, and the imagination is allowed to run riot. 2 factions are created as human beings take their next step in evolution, and this breaks out into total war that consumes an entire galaxy over thousands of years. It's simple, it's imaginative, and it's totally epic. There was a lot of fear around the development of computers during the 80s and 90s, so this game is absolutely on point in aligning itself with that fear of the era. The game offers extensive campaigns for either ARM or Core, individual skirmishes that you can set up yourself, or online multiplayer. Campaign mode offers a story arc, multiple missions and scenarios as you attempt to win the war for either side. The game's interface is very straightforward. It's a great game that even in 1997 it was produced with a detailed minimap, fog of war and easy to understand resource management bars. The unit navigation menu is easy to follow, and I like the fact that each unit and structure has its own thumbnail. Everything is organised and flows well. The instruction menu is also easy to navigate, simple and clear, so you don't lose much time messing around during combat. There is also a wealth of keyboard shortcuts that, if utilised, can make your gameplay incredibly efficient and more tactically effective. The 95-piece Northwest Symphonia Orchestra performs Jeremy Soul's original symphonic score for the game. What I found to be great is how the score evolves as the action unfolds. For example, the score becomes increasingly frenzied and boisterous during combat. A darker, more ominous soundtrack was playing while I was rebuilding after a battle, and often while the game itself was waiting for the next battle event to develop. The music really is top tier quality and adds an extra dimension of depth and immersion. It certainly helps this game to stand out from a crowd. Throughout the game's existence, Cavedog released a number of patches and 2 expansion packs, the Core Contingency in the mid-1998 and Battle Tactics shortly after. Cavedog also released an editor for their game, allowing the fanbase to make maps and scenarios of their own. The modding community is what has helped cement this game's legacy though, and should rightly be given enormous credit. There's almost no shortage of additional units, in fact thousands have been created, from Star Wars TIE fighters, super battleships and Independence Day style floating fortresses, to ice cream vans, playing great music with built-in annihilator cannons that pop up and wreak havoc. Also, if you press a certain keyboard combination while in the skirmish menu, you can go from having 4 to 10 AI opponents, which is far more interesting, especially when you and your AI opponents have to bunk up on the same small island. Something else that impressed me was the various AI files available to download, making the computer players strategize, prioritize and act in different ways at ever-increasing difficulty levels. Some games I was overrun with overwhelming Lord of the Rings style air and ground invasions, and some games I was simply nuked out of existence. To determine how far I could take this game from its vanilla state, I resolved to modding the hell out of it, and a number of high quality full game conversions available online astounded me. In the end, I settled for the Escalation mod, which you can find at TA Universe if you want to download it yourself. The mod adds a ton of new units, with each side gaining extra technology trees and vast, unimaginably powerful and gigantic units that can deal incredible amounts of destruction. I had to run the game at its maximum resolution in order for everything to work and fit the screen correctly, and the new bird's eye point of view took a bit of getting used to compared to a much closer perspective. However, this is definitely worth it, as both the units and your armies get bigger and bigger. It does take a literal age to create the more powerful units, but they are quite amazing. There are changes to the other parts of the game too, including new AI, sounds, animations and graphics. The game also came with the original unit limit of 250, but this mod takes that up to 1,000. This mod in particular was extremely impressive. It takes everything that was great about the original Total Annihilation and amplifies the volume to an absurd degree, which completely engrossed me in the game and made it far more enjoyable. One of the more interesting aspects of the game's legacy is the number of other games that have spawned from it since 1997. The only official sequel, 1999's TA Kingdoms, had a much bigger budget to work with, but wasn't as well received as its predecessor. The Iron Plague expansion did add plenty to the game in 2000, however, though. It did have a spiritual successor, though, as the original Total Annihilation director and developer, Chris Taylor, went on to co-found Gas-Powered Games, which then released a Supreme Commander game in 2007 and its sequel in 2010, which carried on the legacy of large-scale RTS battles in a similar manner. The Supreme Commander series, which never quite managed to recreate the exact magic, but did stand separate from TA and received great critical acclaim, had its own take on the genre. A further successor, 2014's Planetary Annihilation and its 2015's Titans expansion pack, was developed by many of the same people who produced the Supreme Commander series. This game takes the scale of the battlefield to solar system sized levels and is very complicated. The original 1997 game also underwent multiple 3D engine modifications over the years. From 2007 onwards, fans of the original game simply could not let it fade into obscurity. Some had more success than others. TA 3D, released in 2009, fell short, but several spring 3D engine-powered variants of Total Annihilation have become particularly popular amongst the community and continue to be developed to this day. Some notable mentions are XTA, Nota, and Balanced Annihilation. Further games like Evolution RTS and 0K had their own take on the game from the spring 3D engine predecessors. Beyond All Reason, a more recent game that draws extremely heavily from TA to the point of being an identical twin a couple of generations younger, aims to recapture the same levels of complexity and strategic depth as Total Annihilation, while using a contemporary 3D engine and physics. Like many of the other games I've mentioned, it's a free, open source game that I highly recommend you check out, and check out some of the other ones as well. Total Annihilation, with all of the official upgrades and a selection of high quality community mods, is a game that, although it has been left way behind in terms of graphics, interface and some elements of the physics engine, is still a very fun game to play today. Yes, of course graphic fidelity is important, but the gameplay, strategic depth and the variety of Total Annihilation I feel more than make up for it. If I were to offer up some things about the game, particularly in its unmodified expansion pack only form, they would be mostly about the AI, so let's discuss them. The typical AI can be best described as irrational rather than formidable. The AI is following instructions set for the specific map type, which is very good, but the AI still often comes across as having no real strategic objective. It isn't winding up for that killer blow or to target your resources, it's just doing its own thing, regardless of what you're doing. The AI will spend huge resources expanding its base with no clear logic or organisation, it's just expanding. The AI doesn't seem to prioritise its resources towards creating powerful weapons. When it does eventually start constructing them, they just get finished when they get finished. I often had to show huge restraint and consciously decide not to use nukes, as I knew the computer wouldn't use them either, and I would easily win. It will also group massive ground armies on the corner of islands, rendering them useless and just good target practice. Imagine if, in the Second World War, the Germans were all hanging around on the beach, watching the Allied battleships and aircraft take up attacking positions and open fire on them, while waiting for any potential invasion army to rock up for a bit of close-quarter combat. With the AI controlling my units, I did find it particularly annoying that they would constantly run into each other or get caught up in gaggles, where groups of units would all get stuck together and end up getting destroyed through sheer incompetence of basic spatial awareness. A final gripe I did have was the inability to set formations for my groups, formations that I wanted the AI to try and stick to in battle. It all seemed a bit of a mess at times, even when I felt I was being quite tactically astute. Whilst my irritations with the game are based on the AI in particular, I go back to my opening sentence about how modding the game enhances the experience and removes the majority of the AI issues. Using the Banzai AI files downloaded from the TA universe, or other ones, the AI suddenly becomes far more aggressive and formidable and borderline insane. It certainly cleans up quite a lot of the AI and gives it far more clearer strategies. The ultimate combination of the epic story, impressive physics, roster of units, variety of terrain, superb gameplay, and an incredibly dedicated and creative modding community is what makes this game so special. Total Annihilation's legacy is truly impressive, with the game receiving numerous awards, around 57, and critical acclaim since its publication. It has been recognised as Game of the Year, Best Strategy Game, and Best Multiplayer Game in 1997, amongst other accolades, further solidifies its status as a groundbreaking title. The game truly is the real deal, and maybe more gamers should consider dusting it off and playing it once in a while to experience something truly groundbreaking and remind ourselves how high the bar really was raised for the genre back in 1997. Despite its age, the gameplay mechanics of this game are still very solid and enjoyable. The strategic depth and immersive storytelling makes a timeless classic that continues to captivate players even after all these years. Thank you very much for listening to this review. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe so I can continue making content like this. Any and all feedback and discussion is welcome in the comments below, and I really appreciate your time. See you again soon.